Now, Coach, you had a lot of great quarterbacks in a time when passing wasn't a common plan of attack. How did you make that transition to become a passing-dominant team?
Well, I'd made up my mind when I first began as a head football coach that, what we were trying to do, it just wasn't working, and like everybody else, we had to do something differently. And I remember we'd had a kid named Virgil Carter a few years prior to that when I was an assistant, that we had a good year of throwing the ball, and we actually won the first conference championship that the school had ever won that year. And Virgil had a great career, and I just thought that maybe that's what we needed to do, and see if that would work. And we did, and once we got it going, we didn't really revert back to doing whatever everybody else was doing. We just stayed with it and kept expanding in the passing, and then of course that's what set us apart, I think, from other schools around the country. Yeah,
it worked out well. With all the quarterbacks you've had, we won't ask for any favorites, but we want to know who fills some of these categories. Who do you think had the strongest arm?
Well, we had quarterbacks in the program that had a lot stronger arms than the guys that played. Probably Mark Wilson had the strongest arm as anybody.
Okay. What about who was the best at reading the field?
Oh, I don't know. They all did. They were all really good at it. If they hadn't been, they wouldn't have been playing, because we always had, once we got it going, we always had some good programs in the country or in the program. But what separated the ones that played from those that didn't was that ability right there, is to be able to read and to make quick decisions and then get the ball thrown on time. By that I mean that, if we're going to throw an out pattern, the ball has to be thrown and in the air before the receiver even makes his break. So he's basically thrown to a spot, and then once the receiver turns his head around, the ball's right there. Okay. And it takes a long time to get that worked out, and because if you wait until he's made the break and then he gets open, then you throw it, they're going to be knocked down or picked off or whatever. So timing is everything, and so they were all really good at that.
Okay. Finally, who, if any, do you feel was the best under pressure?
Well, again, it's hard to say, because virtually every one of them. McMahon made that great pass. Detmer made, against Miami. Steve Young made tremendous, plays. Mark Wilson did the same. Gifford Nielsen. It really is hard to say. And then Robbie Bosco, of course. He was the only one that won a national championship and won all of his games. And in fact, I think Robbie won. I think Ty Detmer may have won more games, but Robbie was like 24 and 2 or 3 or something like that as a starter. So it's just hard. You could go on and try to make comparisons about this. And then, of course, Steve Sarkisian was a great quarterback, and that was their '96 team. You don't hear a lot about him, and he just had an outstanding record. I think we went 14-1 that year, as I recall, and beat a very good Kansas State team in the Cotton Bowl. So that was just a great run for us in a great period of time.
With Steve Sarkisian, like you said, you had those 14 wins. That's still the standing record. I think it's tied with Ohio State today. What do you remember from that 1996 run?
Just had great defense, and then, of course, Steve Sarkisian really developed, and he came as a junior college quarterback transfer, and the first year he came in, he was in '95, he was, decent, pretty good, but then by the time '96 came around, he was really in the category of all the rest of them we had in terms of knowing the offense and the timing and the reading and all the other things that went with it. But he just had that great ability to execute plays.
Well, Sarkisian is now the offensive coordinator at USC. He's one of many former players and assistants that you've had that have gone on to have successful coaching careers. What do you think it was about your program that created so many great coaches?
Well, I think just the fact that we were throwing the ball, and I think a lot of people wanted to get to that, into that part of it, into their offense and what they were trying to do, and I think that helped. And of course, they had to be smart and they had to be sharp, or they wouldn't have been, where they were, and which I think, obviously would make for a good football coach if that's the direction they wanted to go. Not all of them wanted to be a coach, and in fact, most of our coaches that got on, I don't know that any of our quarterbacks have, except for Steve Sarkisian. Ty Detmer may wind up coaching, I think, now that he's through playing pro football, but I don't think any of the others will. But a lot of the guys we've had have been guys like Andy Reid, who was an offensive lineman at the Philadelphia Eagles, and Brian Billick, who is a tight end of the Colts, the Baltimore Colts, or the Baltimore Ravens, I guess now. And then Mike Holmgren was an assistant coach for us. And so, they're just guys that were in a good program, and they got a good opportunity to go out and coach, and then some of them have done very well.
Now, before the 2000 season, we're skipping ahead to your final season, you announced your retirement before. How did that affect your final season, since everyone knew it was going to be your last year?
Well, I don't know. You could probably look at it and analyze, because we didn't have a great year that year, and I think that we ended up good. One of the last two games, and when we got around to using Brandon Oman, like we probably should have done all year long. But I think the main reason that I announced it before was I was getting to an age, and the way the season went that year anyway, then it really saved a lot of speculation about should I retire, should I not retire. Then you get that kind of, kind of dialogue going on all the time with the papers, and so I just took away that. I didn't want to go through that, and but I look upon that season with great fondness because of the way that players came back and beat a good New Mexico team and a good Utah team in the last two games of the year, and finished upright. And then, of course, the ending against Utah was just like these last 2 years. It was unbelievable how it ended, and so that made it nice.
How important was it for you to win that final game the way you did versus Utah? I mean, was that just good to end it on that note?
Well, it really was. And nice. Won my first game as a head coach and won my last, and so they say that two most important victories you have during any season is the first and last to get you off to a good start, and then you end with at least with an upbeat. So.
Okay. Well, at the final home game, President Hinckley announced they're going to name the stadium after you. How surprised were you?
Very surprised. I knew they were obviously going to do something because he was there that night, and I thought it would probably be naming the field or something like that. I really didn't know, and but it was fun to have him in the locker room there prior to the game, and then just visiting with him there in a little room off the locker room while they're waiting for him to come out and start the ceremony. And he's such a special man anyway, and then just to have him there and listen to him tell some stories. And then he goes out and talks to the team, and he tells the team, he said, "This is Coach Edwards' last game." He said, "Now don't muff it." Talking to the players, and it was a lot of fun to have him there.
Now, he also gave you an 84 ball,
right? The
whole signed team. I don't think people realize that you didn't have one. Do you still have that he gave you?
Yes, yeah, and I think he said, "This is not yours to keep. This will eventually go into the museum or something."
Got to give it back.
Yeah, so I guess I better go find it so I can give it back. We know where it is.
Well, up to date now with the current BYU season, for the past few years, BYU and Utah have continued to have amazing finishes. And BYU has really reestablished the winning tradition that you started. What sticks out to you about Coach Bronco Mendenhall?
His attention to detail. I think he's a very good coach. I think he's extremely well organized. They're playing very good defense, and that helps. And then, of course, it really helps to have a couple of quarterbacks around like they've had these last two. And I think that they're both outstanding quarterbacks, and as long as you have a good quarterback here with this kind of offense, then of course it's going to make a big difference. But he is very well organized, and I think it's just got everything headed in the right direction, and doing I think everything extremely well. Like
you said, all the talk of the BCS bowl game. Here's the inevitable question: what's Lavell Edwards' prediction for next year's team?
I think they'll have a very good team, and I never did make any predictions about numbers of victory or whatever else. I think if they stay healthy and particularly in a couple of real key areas, that is always such a big issue, is the health of your key players, and that they got a chance to have a very good season, and they'll have a very good season. Now, how many games they'll win, you just don't know. That'll take care of itself. But I just think they'll do very well.
All right, well, you heard the prediction right here on True Blue. Lavell, thank you so much for joining us today and letting us relive your legendary career. A lot of great stories.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Well, that's all we have for True Blue this week. Check us out on the web at byub.org/trueblue. Next week, we'll have a special Y Awards pre-show with all of your favorite athletes, so be sure to check that out. Thanks for watching True Blue, your only home for BYU sports and recreation. We'll see you next time.